Hello and welcome. You're watching the Friday edition of This Is Exclusive with me, Shavinson. Ladies and gentlemen, a verdict that has come in from Qatar has left everyone shocked here in India. We're talking about 8 Navy veterans, a story that was first picked up by Republic TV last year in the month of November when we spoke to the family members of those veterans who were in Qatar for a training program. In fact, this was on an invitation by the Qatari Navy. But they were arrested with not a single communication as to why exactly were they arrested, sent to solitary confinement, and then finally consular access was given. But till date, no one really knows what are the real charges that have been leveled against the Navy veterans. Interestingly, Indian government maintains that they are looking at all possible legal options. And not just that, they are also planning to challenge this entire verdict that has been passed by a court in Qatar. Over the next couple of minutes, we will be speaking to the family members, and not just that, but those who have served along with these Navy officers who the country is extremely proud of. But up first, these are the headlines we're tracking at this hour. Qatar court verdict sentencing 8 ex-Navy officers to death. MEA says government exploring legal options. Families of 8 Indians kept in the dark on details of the case, and trial demand grows to bring back the Indian sailors.
लोगों ने गुलामी की मानसिकता नहीं गई, वो संस्कृत के प्रति वैर भाव पालते रहे। इस मानसिकता के लोग पिछले 1000 साल से हारते आ रहे हैं और आगे भी कामयाब नहीं होंगे।
In Chitrakoot, Prime Minister slams anti-Sanskrit brigade, says colonial mindset led to ridiculing Sanskrit.
गवर्नमेंट जब भारत को गुलाम बनाया तो उस समय मां दुर्गा ने क्या कर रही थी?
Yet another India Alliance Neta insults Hindu religion, asks why did Ma Durga not save the country from Britishers? Russian scam explodes in West Bengal. Mamata Banerjee's minister Jyotirmoy Malik arrested by the enforcement directorate. 3 Hamas terror operatives killed in airstrikes as Israel's unrelenting fight against terror continues. Ladies and gentlemen, on August 2022, 8 decorated Indian Navy officers were arrested by Qatar security for unknown reasons. They were placed in solitary confinement. The 8 Indian nationals worked at Qatar's Tara Global Technologies and Consulting Services. It's a private company that offers training and various other services to the defense and security agencies of Qatar. Now, after months of detention, reports revealed that these 8 former naval officers were arrested on Qatar's alleged secret submarine program for Israel and were allegedly on charges of espionage. The first bail plea of the jailed officers was held a month after they were picked up and detained in solitary confinement. The plea was rejected. It's been 14 months since the first arrest, and just about yesterday, the Qatar court handed down the death penalty to those 8 decorated former Indian Navy personnel. It was Republic back in November 2022 who had launched a campaign for justice for our veterans, and today as well, Republic is the voice of those families who are trying to fight to get their loved ones back. Take a look at this report when we first spoke to the family members back in November 2022.
On the night of 30th August 2022, 8 decorated Indian Navy veterans were arrested by Qatar State Security on undeclared charges. Soon after their arrest, they were then placed in solitary confinement. Few weeks later, reports claimed that they had been detained in connection with an espionage case. It was only after almost a month that the veterans were allowed to call their families. Their illegal confinement sparked outrage,
In the last
and
2
Republic
months.
fought to get the decorated Navy veterans back.
I would like kindly inform that
Well, there's been no communication whatsoever from the Qatari authorities about why the 8 former Indian naval personnel are in custody in Doha. We here at Republic Media Network stand by you, and this perhaps is yet another attempt that we are going to make from the Republic Media Network to raise your voice so that the authorities concerned do take cognizance of the plight that you are in right now.
The 8 Indians worked for a private firm called Dehra Global Technologies and Consultancy Services, which provided training and other services for Qatar's armed forces. The company was owned by a retired squadron leader of the Royal Oman Air Force, Khamis Ali Ajmi, who too was arrested but was released on 17 November 2022. The family sought assistance from the government in bringing back their loved ones.
Mr. Arindam Bagchi, yes, he gave the statement, but very sorry to say it came after 65 days. I plead the MEA, the Honorable Prime Minister, the Government of India to act fast and bring back all the 8 veterans to India, repatriate them immediately to India.
Republic became their voice and a channel to make their voice be heard.
These 8 former Navy officers have gone missing. What are your demands that you want to put through Republic TV today?
Yes, to repatriate all the 8 officers back to India immediately within a day or 2. They have served their motherland. Hence, again, plead our government, our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, that to kindly expedite their release.
As India scrambles to get the veterans off the news, Republic will continue to fight to get the veterans back. Bureau Report, Republic TV.
Well, in fact, we also spoke to those who've served along with these Navy veterans. Important to point out here is this, ladies and gentlemen, that we are talking about Navy veterans, well-decorated officers who received the President's Gold Medal of Excellence, some who have been with our aircraft carrier. That's the kind of officers we are talking about. These officers have been taken into detention by the Qatari authorities, not a single shred of evidence. In fact, we spoke to Captain D.K. Sharma, former spokesperson of the Navy, but he also has served with one of the Navy veterans who's been arrested, coursemate of one of the Navy veterans. Listen into what Captain D.K. Sharma had to say. Hello and welcome. You're watching This Is Exclusive. Joining us on this special broadcast of This Is Exclusive is the former Navy spokesperson, Captain D.K. Sharma. He is also someone who is a coursemate of one of the Navy veterans who was arrested in Qatar. It is undoubtedly a shocking moment for every Indian. We are talking about 8 Navy veterans who have served our country, some of the most well-decorated officers who have now been served the death sentence for a charge that we still do not know. Captain D.K. Sharma, thank you very much for joining us on this broadcast. Let me straight away begin by asking you, you've been a coursemate of at least one of the veterans. You've known others as in the capacity of as a colleague. I want to first begin by asking you about the 8 Navy officers that India does not really know about. Who are they and what is it that they have done for the nation?
Well, good evening. Good evening, everybody, and all the viewers of Republic Channel. It's a very sad day. Yesterday, when we came to know that suddenly a capital punishment has been, awarded to all 8 of our brethren, our colleagues, our brothers in arms. We don't know what are the charges, what were the charges pressed against them,
right?
How fair the trial was. Given all that, and suddenly you get to know that the highest punishment which anybody can be awarded, that is a death sentence, has been given to them. Keeping that aside, I'm sure Government of India will certainly move all its channels and make sure that these people are extradited as soon as possible. Setting that aside, insofar as these 7 officers and one sailor is concerned, 5 of them are executive officers. One of them, Purnenu Tiwari, Commander Purnenu Tiwari, is our senior, and he was the fleet navigating officer when I was there in the fleet. Then Captain Gill is my cosmate. Right. Captain Verma has done his specialization with me for 1 year in Cochin in the Long India School. Then I know Amit Nagpal, I know Commander S.K. Gupta. They were all junior colleagues, and we have been interacting on and off. There are 2 technical officers and 1 sailor. Of course, I have not served with them, but I have heard about them. We have seen them in various bases. So professionally, very, very sound people. They have done their job in the Navy. They have finished their 20 years each. The sailor probably must have finished 15 years. And since they were capable enough, they took a call and took voluntary retirement and joined this firm, Dara Global, as a second career, which is, very normal with anybody of us. If I am proficient in teaching, if I have that acumen in me to teach the subjects which are very, very specific to Navy, that is what these people were doing. They were there at the request of the Qatari Navy. There is a MOU existing that, whosoever retires from here and wants to work over there and wants to train their navies over there, that is what they were doing. I don't know what has happened and what has gone wrong. Some of them were there for a decade. Gill was, of course, there for around 8-9 years. B.K. Verma was there more than... B.K. Verma had joined this company before Gill. So where are the fault lines? And how come suddenly they become, whatever the charges are being pressed, I would not like to even elaborate on them because I don't believe in that. So what is the bigger design? We do not know. But as far as the officers and the sailor are concerned, they were above board all throughout, unblemished careers. And they did their service in the Indian Navy. And rightly so, after taking voluntary retirement, they have gone as a second career, which is a choice. And this all depends upon your own capabilities and how much load you can take.
Captain Sharma, what I also find extremely astonishing is the fact that there has been complete silence on this entire matter. Back in November last year is when I spoke to one of the family members. That was the first time that they spoke to any news network, and the appeal was essentially made that hoping that some action would have been taken. It's almost going to be a year, and we still do not know what are the real charges. There is absolutely no word about it. In this course of time, were you able to speak to any of the family members, the kind of ordeal that they must have gone through that the nation ought to know today?
Look, this is something very private, and I would like to keep it that way. But I'm very sure, I know it for sure, that the Navy, the Government of India, various channels, various people in the place of authority have been, interacting with the families, have been assuring them that whatever is possible will be done. But this verdict, this has come as a shock. If you recollect, these guys, all these officers were, picked up, put in solitary confinement. After that, there was no word from them. And suddenly, the pressure built up, and then the consular access was granted. The families were allowed to meet probably once a month or something. And after that, they were moved from the solitary confinement to 2 people in 1 cell. So this was a positive development. And the next logical step we thought and we were anticipating was that once the case is tried in the court, they will be exonerated, they will be acquitted, and they will come back. Unfortunately, it has fallen on its head. And suddenly we find that all of them have been convicted, and convicted with a capital punishment, with a sentence of a capital punishment. So this is totally out of the blue. This is a shock out of the blue. And I'm, we are at a loss of words that if we are at the, I'm saying, not able to, take it, think of the families, think of their children, think of their parents. They don't even know what their kids have done, what these officers have done. The spouses don't know what they have done, what are they being charged with, what are they going to pay for.
Captain Sharma, we are talking about officers who would largely be called as the cream of Navy, with the kind of decorated officers they have been. I was actually going through some of the record of some of the officers, which undoubtedly makes every Indian extremely proud. What is extremely worrisome is this: the very fact that they were in Qatar at the invitation coming in from the Navy, and in terms of the training module that was that they were imparting. What turns out from certain reports that I was actually going through coming in from Qatar, and some of the journalists that I spoke in Qatar, is that a new angle emerges. Now they are essentially leveling charges of espionage. They're essentially talking about other nations also being involved in it, and some also not ruling out the possibility that there could be a company rivalry that could take place. All that put together, does it really disappoint you? Because till today, none of us really know what's really happening.
I can only vouch for one thing, that they were imparting training over there, and they were the best insofar as the records are concerned. That is why Qatari Navy was, renewing their contracts year on year. Had they been not up to the mark, or, not proficient enough, the feedback system is there. And obviously there are many choices available in the world. But if you see that this company was, growing from strength to strength, the strength of the people employed from India was increasing by the day. So professional rivalry, or whatever other things which are now being speculated, I think we should keep them aside and let the MEA and our the diplomatic channels sort this out. And I'm very, very sure that this will not be left unattended. This will be given topmost priority. After all, this is a matter of 8 lives, and it is our, they are our veterans. They have served the Navy, Indian Navy, for 20 plus years each. So I have no reason to, believe that this will not be taken at the topmost priority by MEA and our diplomatic fraternity.
Well, thank you very much, Captain D.K. Sharma, for joining us on this broadcast and putting across a perspective that many perhaps were not really aware of. And more importantly, as I would say, that every Indian should be aware of the kind of contribution that our veterans have made. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks.
Well, there is very little that is essentially known about this entire case. So what are the options available before the family members and as far as the Indian government is concerned? Former Indian ambassador to Qatar, KP Fabian, has spoken exclusively to Republic TV and said that India and Qatar share a very crucial trade and bilateral relationship, and the negotiation is the only way forward. He's also said that the Indian government and the Ministry of External Affairs should formally put a request to the Qatar government for a pardon. Listen in to what Ambassador Fabian had to tell my colleague Simran.
Well, we have to go by what is available in the public domain, because understandably both governments have been rather reluctant to pass on information on such a sensitive subject. So from what is available on the public domain, it is clear that it was a question of alleged spying, and some reports have indicated, you might also have seen, that the spying was done on behalf of Israel. So this is what we know from the public domain. And then we also know, again from the public domain, that these 7 officers, commanders, captains, and 1 sailor, they have been working with a particular company, Oman headquartered company, and that company has been highly contract with Qatari Navy for rendering services, including the the midget submarine from Italy, to sort of make the Qatari Navy acquainted how to make use of it and all that. So it was very sensitive. So this is what has happened, namely, very sensitive defense-related information. The allegation or the charge has been sort of, parted with, and that to another country. So that is the allegation. Now we have also to understand that while the trial was going on, trial started in March this year, and the 7th trial was over yesterday. Was in October, and the verdict was given yesterday. So what we have to understand is that when the trial is on, there is no point in asking His Highness the Amir to give a pardon, because pardon comes after the verdict, not before the verdict. But understandably, the families have been asking for it, the pardon, which is again understandable. After all, we are all human beings. So my view is that, taking into account the larger context of relations between the state of Qatar and India, 8 lakhs of Indians are in Qatar, so many of them holding professional positions, doctors, engineers, managers, and also the deepening commercial relations, because the trade is bilateral trade was about $15 billion, 21-22, heavily in favor of if you look at the balance, heavily in favor of Qatar, because we buy LNG from them. Not only LNG, ethylene, urea, ammonia, things like that. So it is heavily in favor of Qatar, say 13 billion and 2 billion India, that sort of thing. And don't forget, more than 40% of our LNG imports are from Qatar. And if you look at Qatar's export of LNG, 15% goes to India. So the trade relationship is very, very strong. And not only that, there is scope for expanding it further. And about 6,000 Indian companies are working there. You know what I mean? And Qatar Investment Authority is planning to open an office in India. You know that they have invested in Adani ports, and they have invested in Byju's. So that's just calculating 3 investments which I could see. It came to about $700 million, recent investments. And so there is much scope there also.
In terms of the options really available before India, we are now given to understand that India, in all possibility, would be challenging this verdict that has been passed by a court in Qatar. The difficulty perhaps essentially is in the fact that there is very little that is known in terms of the charges that have been leveled against them. Third aspect is the very fact that very little cooperation has also come in from the very company that these Navy veterans were working with. In fact, the CEO of this particular company with which the Navy veterans were associated with, he too was arrested, but then he was let off on bail. Reasons still not known at this point in time. A story that we'll be tracking very closely.
are in one of the forward locations in the south of the Israel, and here the preparations are in full swing. How the troops are preparing for the ground battles. The tanks have been installed. The big Merkavas are here on the ground to totally wipe out the Hamas terrorists, and so does the regular briefings of the soldiers that are taking place here at the ground zero.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola, India's best 5G smartphone brand.
Qatar court verdict sentences 8 ex-Navy officers to death. MEA says government exploring legal options. Families of 8 Indians kept in the dark on details of case and trial demand grows to bring back the Indian sailors. In Chitrakoot, Prime Minister Modi slams anti-Sanskrit brigade, says colonial mindset led to ridiculing of Sanskrit. Yet another India Alliance Neta insults Hindu religion, asks, why did Ma Durga not save the country from Britishers? Ration scam explodes in West Bengal. Mamata Banerjee's minister Jyotipriya Malik arrested by ED. Good evening, viewers. We begin this edition of news with the big story that we've been tracking through the day. Yet another India Alliance leader has attacked the Hindu religion in a shocking comment. Lalu's MLA, Phate Bahadur, has now asked, where was Ma Durga during British rule and why couldn't she save the country from Britishers? Let's listen in to what he said and the reactions on it.
एक काल्पनिक कहानी है। दुर्गा उस कहानी का एक पात्र है। कोई देखिए, मैं मान लेता, मेरे पास साक्ष्य है, अगर दुर्गा जी या हमारे देश में मनुवादियों के अनुसार 33 करोड़ देवी और देवता हैं, लेकिन जब भारत गुलाम हुआ, जब ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट भारत में आया और भारत को गुलाम बनाने का काम किया, उस समय भारतीयों का संख्या जो था 30 करोड़ था और देवी देवताओं का संख्या भारतवर्ष में 33 करोड़ था। तो क्या मैं उन मनुवादियों से पूछना चाहता हूं जिन मनुवादी ने ये लिखा कि महिषासुर के करोड़ों करोड़ सेना के साथ मां दुर्गा ने लड़ाई लड़ा और महिषासुर को संहार कर दिया, तो मुट्ठी भर ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट जब भारत को गुलाम बनाया तो उस समय मां दुर्गा ने क्या कर रही थी? 10 हाथ का औजार कहां था? और इस समय तो और औजार का आविष्कार हो चुका था, तो मां दुर्गा ने ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट को संहार करने का काम क्यों नहीं किया?
ये नीतीश कुमार की सरकार, लालू जी की सरकार सनातन को अपमान करने का बीड़ा उठाया और इसी तरह इनके मंत्री ने रामायण को अपमानित किया और ये इसलिए करते हैं कि हिंदुओं के सहिष्णुता को बार बार चैलेंज कर रहे हैं। मंत्री रामायण को अपमान करता, विधायक